Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts, and I'm excited to introduce you to a new podcast series in partnership with Lord Fairfax Community College. Having provided higher education and career training for the past half-century, LFCC is tightly interwoven into the fabric of the Northern Shenandoah Valley and Piedmont regions. Join me every week for conversations with current and former students to hear their funny and inspiring stories as we learn about their journey to higher education, the role that LFCC has played, where they are now, and where they plan to go. We'll also talk to current and former professors about their experiences and best memories of LFCC over the past 50 years. Get every single episode as they're released on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, on Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for LFCC Stories. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Friday. As you are listening to the show today, we of course have pre-recorded our conversation. Karen Poff is back for Extension Office Friday. She, of course, was on with me last month. We were talking about quick money chats. I'll have the links to all of that up in case you caught it and then just remembered that you didn't go do anything with the quick money chat. You'll still be able to access that from the show notes of today's page. But when Karen was on the show with me last month, we were talking about credit. And I had so many questions, Karen, that you couldn't get to all of them. And what you do at Virginia Cooperative Extension is work with people through the quick money chats, through the money management programs, through the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program to help people understand, improve, establish all of the things related to credit. And that's what you're going to help me with today, isn't it?
Absolutely. We'll be answering all your questions.
I tried to come up with smart questions. So let's hope that we can stay on track. So my first question that I think a lot of people would ask is, why is credit so important? I feel like it's so much more important now than it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago. What makes having good or bad credit such a big deal in my everyday life?
It definitely is more important than it used to be. And I think people don't realize how many areas of their lives it affects. And even some of the financial gurus that you listen to will say, pay cash for everything. You'll be better off, even save up to buy your house. And that's all well and good. But if your credit affects things that don't have anything to do with credit, then it's a problem. So you can pay cash for everything, but you still won't have a good credit score. You'll have no credit. And what could happen is that could be detrimental to you in some of these areas. So a couple of those kinds of things, one of them is getting a job, believe it or not. And I heard a statistic recently that 50% of employers now check your credit before they hire you. And it may even be higher than that by now. And it started out with just employers like banks or places where you were going to be handling somebody else's money. But it's not like that anymore. Some employers check every person, even the person who's going to be mowing the lawn or cleaning or whatever. So that's really important that you have a good credit score so that when they check that out, you would have the opportunity to get that job. Another one is renting an apartment. So that does a little bit have to do with your credit, but people don't think about it that way. So if you have no credit score, how is the landlord going to know that you're responsible in paying your bills? You've always paid them in cash, and that's great, but you don't have any proof that you've been responsible at paying your bills. And so a landlord's going to view you as more risky, and they're taking a bigger chance on you than somebody whose credit score they can check and they know that they're responsible in paying their bills because their credit score is the proof of that. Same thing with getting a phone or obtaining other kinds of services like that where it's an ongoing contract. Even things like your security deposits. If you have a good credit score, your security deposits on your utilities are going to be lower than if you have no credit score. Again, because it's an unknown, you're an unknown quantity. And so that utility looks at you and says, well, we don't know if they're going to pay on time because they don't have proof that they pay on time. So we have got to charge them more for their security deposit. So insurance rates is another one that people don't realize. And it's not intuitive. Why would your credit score have anything to do with your insurance rates? I still don't understand why. And we could debate all day whether or not that's fair, but it's a fact of life. And so people are going to pay more if they don't have a good credit score on their insurance. So it's really important to keep a good credit score, which means you have to use credit. Now, the one thing I would say to people is that doesn't mean you have to be in debt. You can use credit without being in debt. And you do that by charging on your card today and paying it off at the end of the month. And then you're using it as a convenience. You're not paying any interest and you're not going into debt. And you can do the same thing with installment loans. You may have the money in the bank to pay for the furniture, but you get an installment loan and you pay for it over a 3-month or a 6-month time frame instead of paying for it all at once. And you do pay a little interest in that case, but you're not going into debt because you've got the money in the bank, but you are building your credit. So debt and credit are not synonymous, and people need to understand you can use credit wisely and build a good credit score.
And I think that's part of my story is that we had a lot of credit card debt. We had a lot of just debt in general 10, 15 years ago when Tim and I were early on into our marriage, and we set a goal of just paying everything off. And we paid everything off 10 years or more ago and decided we were never going to go back to that place again. So we have no credit cards. We've been living in this house for 16 years and we rent. Now, that's not necessarily because of credit. That's because I'm too lazy to pack all of my stuff up and move and go somewhere else. But I haven't had a new car with a new car payment in forever. And now, since our conversations these last couple of years about credit, I've been thinking, well, I don't know that I could walk into Don Buyer Volvo and say, I want that car and be able to qualify for a car loan, much less buy a house. And now I'm thinking, am I paying too much for my car insurance? And what are all these other things that I didn't even know have been impacting me because I thought I was doing the smart thing.
Right. And your score still may be pretty good if you are using credit cards some. You can get a pretty decent score with using credit cards. If you use no credit cards at all, though, then it's very difficult. So I have the same situation in terms of my credit score. It's pretty good, but it is not as high as it could be. And people think they want, well, gosh, she's a credit expert. She should have an 800 credit score or higher. Well, I can tell you my score is not that high. Why? Because my vehicle has 250,000 miles on it. And that's the last car loan I had 20 years ago. I'm too cheap to buy a new one. And, I haven't had a car loan. So all I have is credit cards. So it's only going to get up so high with using just credit cards. The mix of credit, and we'll talk about this more about the parts of your score and everything, but you've got to have different kinds and more progressively responsible as far as what the credit industry looks at. Credit card would be like a beginner level. An installment loan, like a car loan, would be kind of medium, and then a home loan would be your highly responsible credit. So as you build those, your score is going to be able to go up higher. And so, I have a good score, I can get good interest rates. But if I wanted it to be higher, I would have to get a car loan or a mortgage.
And that really does make sense because one of the annoying things that my kid does is point out to me that he is sure I don't even know what my credit score is. I've just never looked at it because I never realized how important it was to know what it is. We're totally going to do that. By the time we're done recording today's show, I'm going to pull it up and find it somewhere. But Josh carries on about, Mom, I'm sure my credit score is better than you because he has no credit cards, but he has student loans. He has a car payment employment. He's got these other things that he got all on his own without needing a cosigner or any of that sort of stuff. And now he's thinking about buying a house. And I'm thinking, man, I've done a really, really good job as a parent, but I've been a really bad job for myself as an adult being financially smart, I think.
Yeah. And, I mean, the flip side of that is your finances are very stable because of the way you've managed things. So it's not a bad thing. It's just that if you were to go out and need credit, then you're going to have a harder time getting the best interest rates. And, again, when you check it, you and I can talk about it, but, it could be that you do want to get it up a little bit higher in order to get the best insurance rates and so forth. But
to go get my new Volvo, because I can
right.
afford a Volvo payment. I just need somebody to say, yes, here it is.
Right.
What color do you want?
Absolutely.
So how does the credit score work? You were talking about it has to be a mix. There's a range of numbers. Kind of give me an overview for the credit score itself.
Okay, so the credit score, and we're going to talk about credit reports a little bit later, and that's where your score comes from. But I always feel like it helps people to think about the score first, because that's where all the curiosity is. They want to know what that means and everything. And then when we talk about the credit reports, it makes more sense why you want your credit report to be accurate. So the score has 5 parts, and this is a FICO score, which is the most commonly used score. 90% of the creditors use a FICO score. And the 5 parts we're going to talk about kind of one after the other. The first one is your payment history, and that makes up 35% of your score. So what that means is, do you pay on time every time? It doesn't necessarily have to be in full. It could be just the minimum payment, but on time every time. And any missed payments, even if it's because you had enough money but you were disorganized and the bill got misplaced and things like that happen, but those will ding your score if they're more than 30 days late. So that's something that people need to think about. On time every time. Have a good system for paying your bills on time. And that's the bulk of your score. That's more than a third of your score.
Which makes sense, because that shows, payment history is the number one thing that people are going to look at to see, are they going to pay me on time? Well, let's look and see who else they pay on time and how consistent they are with it.
Exactly. Right. And then the next part of your score is amounts owed. So that has a little bit of, it can be a little bit complex to understand, but basically what they're looking at is the amount of money you owe reasonable for them to give you another loan? Because that's what they're looking at. If you're trying to get more credit, they're going to look and see, how much do you owe? This is 30% of your score, so it's almost another third of your score is how much you owe. That is a ratio that there's a rule of thumb for. So it can be really easy for people to judge that they are keeping a good ratio. If you have credit cards, you want to use no more than a third of your allowable balance, your allowable amount. So if you have, for example, 3 credit cards and 9,000 is the total limit on all 3 cards, you want to have no more than 3,000 charged on them at any one time, no more than a third. And ideally, no more than 1,000 on each card, because they don't look at the total; they look at each item. So, and you can kind of intuitively think, well, if I have that same $9,000 limit and I have charged and I'm carrying a balance of 8,000 on them, what's the lender looking at that thinking? They're thinking, man, you're hitting up against your maximum. You might be getting yourself in trouble. You might be getting in over your head because you're bumping up against your limits. The other thing is the total amount that you owe. And here's where co-signing can affect somebody negatively. So if you co-sign a loan, say you co-sign one for your son's automobile, for example, and then it on your report, you owe that full amount of that automobile. Now, let's say you have your own car loan too. And let's say you have some other debt as well. Now, maybe you're owing $50,000 or something with all of that debt added up. Never mind that your son is actually paying that other loan. To the lender, it looks like you have $50,000 worth of debt on, if on an average salary, they may say, well, I'm not going to give them another loan because they're going to be in over their head. So they're not only in this amount owed section looking at the proportions, there's ratio, that 1/3, they're also looking at the total amount that you owe compared to your income and saying, is this reasonable? Or is this person starting to owe too much money? I don't want to take a risk on them.
And it makes sense because if I have co-signed a loan for someone, I have in effect said I will be responsible if that person doesn't make those payments. So it is my debt as much as it is their debt until it is paid off.
Exactly. And I know somebody actually who co-signed, he had his own truck loan, co-signed for his wife's car loan, co-signed for his daughter's car loan. Then when he wanted to get a home equity loan, just a $5,000 home improvement thing, they wouldn't give it to him. So it's something to think about, trying to, keep your amount that you're owing reasonable for that lender to look at. All right, the next section would be your length of credit history. And this one is hard to do anything about because young people just starting out are not going to have a long credit history, and they just have, it just takes more time for their history to become longer. One thing that parents can do is add the young person as an authorized user to their card, and that starts building them a credit history before they maybe go out and get a card on their own when they're older. So that's one thing. I wouldn't do it for a really young person, but maybe a teen, somebody that's occasionally using that card in an emergency or filling up the gas tank or something like that, and then paying you back, those kinds of things, where they're starting to build a little bit of a credit history, even though you're still paying that bill. And over time, that length of credit history gets longer. So older people do have an advantage here if they started building that credit. Now, in your situation, as you were talking about, let's say you paid off all your credit cards, you paid off your car loan, and all of that information drops off of your credit report because your positive information is only going to stay on for 10 years. Now, it might accidentally stay on longer, but it's only required to be on there for 10 years. So now 10 years has gone by and you haven't used any credit at all. You're starting from zero again on your credit history.
Man.
So sorry to tell you that, but another reason why it's important to keep a credit card active, even if you're not using it that often, use it every once in a while, tie it to your landline phone, it's something that's just $25 a month, and pay it off every month. And you still have a credit history that you're keeping going.
Now, do things like paying my cell phone bill, my electric bill, the cable bill, all of those bills, do they count at all towards credit history or payment history?
In general, they do not. There is a newer model called Experian Boost, and you can link those kinds of accounts you sign up for it voluntarily, and you can link those kinds of accounts and get, what they would call non-traditional credit counted. If you don't mind giving up that privacy level as well. And also the other disadvantage to that, though, or it's not necessarily a disadvantage, but lenders are still using the FICO score. So some lenders may look at that Experian Boost score and give you sort of extra credit because you've added those other types of things in. But other lenders are going to say, we're not paying any attention to Experian Boost. We want your FICO score. So I think it can be a benefit, but it's not guaranteed to be a benefit to do that.
Well, and personally, I think their commercials are stupid. So I'm not going to do that anyway, just because their commercials are ridiculous. And so on that note, let's take a quick break. When we come back, can we cover the other two pieces of the credit score and then talk a little bit about the credit report itself?
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation about credit with Karen Poff. She is with, it is Extension Office Friday. Karen is with Virginia Cooperative Extension. She manages the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program. We're going to talk more about your credit score and the credit report when we come back in just a couple of minutes.
Got a financial decision to make or a goal to reach, but you don't know where to start? You've come to the right place. Introducing Quick Money Chats with the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program. Visit tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat to schedule a virtual chat with a staff member or trained volunteer. We won't tell you what to do, but we will give you the tools you need to choose wisely. And because Virginia Cooperative Extension is part of Virginia Tech and Virginia State, your land-grant universities, you can be sure that our information is credible and trustworthy. And you'll know that we aren't trying to sell you something. Maybe you want to improve your credit score, or reduce your banking overdraft fees, or even figure out if you can afford to buy that car. Sorting through tons of information on the internet can be overwhelming, and sometimes it can be hard to know who to trust. Schedule a Quick Money Chat and get the information you need to take action. Go to tinyurl.com/quickmoneychat and get financial education personalized for you.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. Happy Friday. As you are listening to the show today, it is all about the credit cards, the car loans, and the good credit score, or how to get a good credit score. Karen Poff is pre-recording with me today. She, of course, is with the Extension Office. It is Extension Office Friday. She manages the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program. And Karen, we talked in the first segment about how important credit is to so many aspects of our lives that a lot of us may not have even realized. When we went to break, we were going over the 5 parts of a credit score, and you talked about payment history at 35%, the amount that you owe at 30%, the length of your credit history at 15%, but there are still 2 more pieces to how that credit score is determined.
Right. And they're a little less, but they still are important. And if you're trying to get your score up as high as you can get it, then you're going to have to pay attention to all 5 parts of the score. So types of credit is 10% of your score. And a little while back, I was talking about the different levels. That's where this comes in. So if all you've ever had is credit cards, you're only going to be able to get your score up so high, because credit cards are at sort of the beginning level, or the lowest level of credit. They're the easiest thing to get, and the easiest, maybe not the easiest thing to manage, but definitely the easiest thing to access. So the next level would be an installment loan, and that could be a furniture loan, or for many people, it's a car loan. So that's a loan that you borrow a fixed amount and then you pay it back in monthly installments. And so lenders are looking for a mixture. Then the third level would be a mortgage or a home loan or a business loan at a larger amount for a longer length of time. It's still an installment loan, but it's a greater level of responsibility. So that's what they're looking for, is a gradual progression of responsibility. And the people who have the very highest scores are going to have large, longer term installment loans in their credit history somehow.
And that makes sense.
Right. And so if you're trying to build your credit and you're trying to get your score up as high as possible, then you're going to want that mixture. And for example, it would be more difficult to get a mortgage if all you had ever had was credit cards, because you haven't shown that progressive responsibility of being able to manage an installment loan.
Right, because making a $10, $20, or $30 credit card payment every month is a whole lot different than making a $1,200 to $1,500 mortgage payment, for example.
Exactly. And so you've showed that medium level of making the $500 a month car payment over a longer period of time too. It might, 3, 5, hopefully not longer than 5 years. That's another that's another session show for another day. It's car loans and
every time you
car.
are on here, you talk about something or you mention something that I think, oh man, we got to do a show on that too, because I got questions. So I swear it's
The
always
cars
hilarious.
will be next time.
Right. So
And
what about new credit?
Yes. So the new credit is something, and people aren't aware of this. New credit can actually be a bad thing versus a good thing. So sometimes people, especially when they're starting out trying to establish credit or trying to rebuild credit, will try to build it too fast, basically. So if you have one new credit card recently within the last 6 months or a year or whatever, that might seem fairly normal or reasonable. But if you have several, a lender looks at that negatively. Again, for the same reason, because they're looking at it saying, well, this person could be getting themselves in over their head. So you want to establish the credit gradually, use a new source of credit, whether it's a car or a mortgage, or a car or a card or a car loan, up until the mortgage, any type of new credit. Use that account for a year or so before you take out a different one, another new one. So another thing that affects is these department store cards. And lots of people, well, you go here and you're going to get 10% off for signing up for the credit card today. And then another month later, you're going to get 10% off here. And people kind of collect these department store cards. Those count as new credit. So they can negatively affect you. And remember, all of the amounts available on those cards add up too. So if say you have 10 credit cards and your available credit on all those cards, because you have all those department store cards, is $100,000, that it looks very negative to a lender, because even though those cards haven't been charged up, they could be.
Exactly. So it could be that you've had, for example, a Sears card, and I don't even know that we have a Sears in the area anymore. I think the one in the mall in Winchester closed. So say you haven't even used that Sears card for 5 years, and you've had that card for 20, but it has a $10,000 limit on it. That limit still counts against your credit, even though you're not even using it or probably plan to use it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So now you do have to be careful when you're closing cards as well. So that's another consideration. Don't go out and close all those cards at once either, because that can hurt your score.
It's like a tightrope.
Right. So you really want to get some advice from somebody who's actually seen your particular score. Don't just listen to the credit guru on the TV and do what they're saying, because it might not fit with your particular situation.
So what is a good credit score? Is it based on, granted, it's been 35 years since I took the SATs, but is it similar to like the SAT score? The higher you go, the better you are.
Well, that is definitely true. The range for FICO, again, because there are some other different scoring models, and that's another thing that we probably don't have time to delve into. But if people are looking at their Vantage score, which people who use Credit Karma and some of the other free credit sources, they may not be getting a FICO score. They may be seeing a Vantage score, which is a different range and different criteria. So what we are talking about is the FICO score, which 90% of the lenders use. So this is the one you want to know best. The range is from about 300 to 850. And 850 obviously is perfect. I've not known anybody to ever have 850.
It's like the unicorn of credit.
Right. But people who have 750 and above, above 750 is very good. Above 800 is excellent. But you can get good interest rates at above 750. So the fact that I can't get my score above 800 really doesn't bother me. I'm not going to go buy a car, take out a car loan, and pay the interest in order to get my score up that extra 50 points. It doesn't matter, because I'm still going to get the best interest rates. So I encourage people not to obsess over the actual score, because if you've got a 770 and somebody else have a 780, it's really not going to make any difference. You're going to get the same interest rate. So that's something to think about. Now, 700 to 749 is pretty good, but they've got some dings somewhere in there. 650 to 699 is fair. And then if it's under 650, those people are going to have challenges, either challenges getting credit, or they may have to pay much higher interest rates to get credit extended to them.
And I'm guessing that's probably where I'm at. So my next question is, where do I go to get my credit score?
So you can get it several different ways. My personal preference would be to go directly to myfico.com, because that's getting the score from the place that is creating the score. You can also get it at any of the credit bureaus. So TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax. You can purchase your score there. You would have difficulty getting it an official copy for free. However, if all you want is to know what the score is and you don't care about getting recommendations for improving it, then what you can do is look in a variety of places. A lot of credit cards companies are offering the score now. And so if you log into your credit card company website, probably somewhere along the way, if you look around to your card benefits and such, you'll be able to find a score that way. You can also probably get it from a current lender. So if you already have a car loan, go to if your financial institution that's where you have your car loan, go there and ask them about it, and they probably will share that with you. You can also, if you don't have any credit accounts, that would be places where you could get a score. You can go to a credit counselor or a housing counselor. Most of them can pull your credit score for free. So if you're going to a nonprofit place that can help you with your credit, they can pull your score.
Lori Noakes from Blue Ridge Housing Network was on the show last month talking about some of the new programs and services they have. She would be a good one if you qualify for their services that could do that for you.
Definitely. So there are several different places where you can get it free. You can also go to one of those free sources, but just remember, you need to compare apples to apples. So if what you're getting is not a FICO score, from wherever source you get it, if it's not a FICO score, it's probably not going to be the score that the actual lender is going to be looking at. So just remember that. And when they tell you thought your credit score was 700, but no, it's not really, it's really 650. That's probably why, because you're not comparing the apples to apples.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left. Let's talk about the credit report, because I know I can get a free copy of that. And that's what sets the stage more or less for this credit score, right?
Right. And when I'm working with people, honestly, I tell them not to worry about the score. It's even to pay to get the score. Really, I wouldn't pay to get my score unless I was thinking about taking out credit soon. So maybe a year before I was getting ready to get a car loan, at that point, I might pay for the score and become very serious about tweaking it as best as possible to get it up as high as possible. I would do that maybe about 2 years before I was going to try to get a mortgage. But other than that, you can look at your credit report and find out a lot about your credit score. And I can look at someone's credit report and I can tell them right off the bat things that they can do to improve their score. I don't know what their score is. I can't tell them what their score is, but I can tell them, well, this account right here is showing that it's late, or maybe it's showing that it was in collection and you didn't even know it because you moved and you never got the notice. Or maybe maybe some bills have been paid late and you didn't realize it. for whatever reason. And you might be able to straighten that issue out. Or maybe if a bill got paid late one time, you can call the lender and ask them, tell them, I've been a good customer for all these years. It's only happened once. Could you please remove that one negative thing from my report? So we encourage people to dispute any information that's inaccurate in that report. It's really important to do that, because not only for the credit purposes, but also because it can affect your security questions on all your accounts now are coming from these credit reports. So you notice if you go to log in somewhere and they ask you security questions, it's a lot of times coming from your credit report. If there's wrong information in that report, you're not going to be able to answer those security questions correctly.
See, I wondered about that because I've had to go to, and I don't remember what the last one was, but I had to pick which address have you lived at. And I thought, my Lord, we were only there maybe 6 months. How in the world does that address? I have to stop and literally think, we've been here so long. What did we live there? Was that? And I always wondered where in the world they got that information. I had no idea that's where it came from.
Yes. And I can tell you, I was logging on to an investment site to set up a new account, and I got a bunch of questions. I answered them correctly as none of the above because it wasn't me, and I was denied access to that site. And then I contacted them and said, where are you getting this information? And it was LexisNexis. When I ordered my LexisNexis report, there was another Karen Poff whose information had gotten mixed up with mine. Her social security number was different. Her accounts were different. She didn't have bad credit, but her credit was mixed in. So when they asked me those security questions and they asked me, which of these people do you know? And it was people who lived in Roanoke. I didn't know any of them. They were her friends and family. So it really is important, even if you've got a good credit score, to check your report and dispute anything that might be inaccurate, whether it's an address, whether it's a phone number, no matter what it is, because that information is going to be proving your identity in the future.
And how hard is that to do, to dispute something that's on the credit report?
It is not hard. Where people need to go is annualcreditreport.com. And it is a .com, but it is the only official site. It's the site that the federal government required the 3 credit bureaus to work together, the 3 major ones to work together to set up that site, annualcreditreport.com. And it's the only one that's guaranteed free without the strings attached. So
once a year, isn't it just once a year?
Well, actually, right now, because of COVID, up until April of 2022, you can get them up to once a week.
Wow.
So not that anybody would check it that often, but right now, between now and next April, you don't have to worry how often you check it. You can check it as often as you want, and it's still free. So that's something that people can do. And then if you check it online, it's very easy to dispute because you can just click beside the different items that are not yours and put in an explanation of why. This isn't me. This account was closed 2 years ago, whatever your explanation is.
And then you mentioned that, good credit drops off after 10 years. What if something is on there that somebody maybe didn't pay? Maybe it was a hospital judgment. A lot of people have judgments for medical care that end up on their credit report, but it was 10 years ago and you either did or didn't pay it off. Can you still get that removed even if you might still owe that money?
Yes. And it's 7 years. 7 years is the length of time for negative items, except for bankruptcy stays 10 years. So in general, other items is 7 years. So again, you could dispute that and say, this is more than 7 years old, and they would drop that off. So,
because that may be, you're still, even if at that point you're taking it back to a 0, but a 0 with nothing bad is better than a 0 with a bunch of bad stuff still hanging out there.
Exactly. That's definitely true. And like I said, sometimes people find things that they didn't even know about because they had moved, or because maybe it's an ex-spouse's account that isn't even really yours because the divorce decree said they had to pay it, but it's on your credit report. And so you have to prove that this isn't mine and this negative information shouldn't be on my account. So there's lots of different reasons why negative information might be on there. And it really, disputing it is the only way to get it off.
So if somebody is listening today and you have opened up a whole new set of questions and issues and curiosities for them, are these things that they can reach out to you about and say, okay, Karen, I've got questions. Can you help me go through my credit report? Can you explain this particular thing to me in more detail? Are those things you can help them with personally?
We would be happy to do that. And the best way to do that is through the quick money chats that we talked about last time. So they can just click on that link, they put in their contact information and their question, which in this case would be, I would like somebody to review my credit report with me, or I have questions about credit reports and credit scores, or I want to improve my credit, whatever the question is. And then they're just going to check off the days and times that they're available. It doesn't have to be during the business day. It can be evenings or weekends, but we will contact them back at a time that works for them to talk with them. If it's reviewing a credit report and we actually need to see the report, we can do that over Zoom or some other video conferencing method so that we can both see the report at the same time.
And I will tell people, because you tell me all the time, that people reach out to you fairly frequently and say, hey, I heard you on the radio show and now I have a question. So don't do it because you think nobody else is, because other people actually listen to us, Karen, and then want more information.
That is true. And I email you from time to time and say, hey, somebody heard us and reached out, and that it's great. We love to help people, and I'm happy to help in any way possible.
And I will put links to Quick Money Chats. I'll put the myfico.com, the annualcreditreport.com information all in the show notes page. Karen, thank you again for meeting up with me for another Extension Office Friday. I swear I think we're going to have to think about a whole separate series where we just pick a topic and talk every month, separate and apart from Extension Office stuff. So we may actually have to talk about a whole second show for you.
Sounds great.
I hope you get out. Have a great weekend. I will be back on Monday. As you are listening to the show right now on Friday afternoon, I am strolling Strasbourg with Olivia Hilton, recording our show for Monday. I believe we are chatting with 2 or 3 different businesses. We made a pact that we were actually going to stroll this time. So we're going to actually stroll Strasbourg, but I think Pancake Underground is going to be one of our stops, and I am fairly excited about that. So I will meet you back here on Monday with that conversation. Have a great weekend. Till then.